And what it is a 320 CE 1993. The car I got from the European Auto Wreckers, which is up the road, and this car has been sitting in their yard for the last year and a half in the weather, and whilst it looks sort of clean because it's just been raining, it is not. The car looks pretty straight. I couldn't see any obvious rust bubbles or anything, but it has a few issues. On the paintwork here, on the bonnet, there's a big chunk here and a chunk here out, so eventually at the end of the day I'll have the bonnet repainted. With the car, it has an electrical problem, I assume, because the seat belt feeders don't work, the central locking doesn't work, and seat locks don't work. All of this, I hope, will be rectified. The upholstery is in good condition. The electric seats, well, the driver's one works as far as I know. The timber work down here is buggered, but we'll replace that piece. I noticed there was water over in that rear corner when I picked the car up this morning, but the good news is the roof actually works, so the pistons must be okay. And the other problem is too the boot. You can't open the boot, and the key we have only one key with this car and no remote or anything, and the key doesn't fit this lock. So for all I know, the boot could be full of water, or it could be a body in it. The other thing, when I checked the car, I noticed the radiator overflow bottle full of oil, which indicates that the car had a blown head gasket. I thought it did have, but they have assured me that they have changed the head gasket, and I can't believe that someone would change a head gasket and not flush out the system, or at least, I mean, flush out the system and get the oil out. And so now one of the first things I'll be doing is flushing the engine, or the radiator out, and the engine block, and taking that water bottle off and cleaning it out. Another problem with the car is the front end. The brakes are shocking. The whole front end is all over the place. So it's probably rotors, pads, wheel bearings, tie rod ends, or whatever. I won't know until we get to that stage. To give you an idea of what the upholstery and the windows, because when I was washing the car, all the dirt on the inside from the humidity is all streaming down. Look at that. The roll bar headrests, look at them. And that's what the upholstery is like all over. It's hard to give you a picture. It's like the outside of the car. Well, this is where we're up to. A lot of scrubbing, unbelievably so. Got the dirt and the grime off the upholstery, and the upholstery seems to be in pretty good condition for the age of the car, being 25 years old. By the way, this car has done 185,000 kilometres, which is probably not much at all. Unfortunately, down on the floor here, you can hear the water and the dirt and the grime in the carpet. The people had these big heavy rubber mats there, and what I'm going to do is I've got a wet dry vacuum cleaner, and I'm going to vacuum up the water out of the back. And when I washed this car, I checked if any water was coming inside and couldn't see any at all. Right, now we're going to suss out why the central locking and everything doesn't work. It's fuse C in the fuse box down here, 8 amp, a red one. I've been told that the electronics for it is under the rear seat, so I'm going to pull that out now. Oh, hey, well, there is definitely no shortage of electronic stuff under the back seat. A unit over there, a unit here, a unit here, another unit here. As you can see, it's had water down in here, and this plug is hanging off, and I'm going to unbolt this and pull it out and just make sure the water hasn't gone into that unit. Okay, this is the pump for the central locking, and above it is foam and everything, a chunk of foam, and underneath it is sludge and foam and water and everything. So I think my theory about the roof leaking at the rear coming down, that's why the carpets are soaked. Probably have to change the seal on the roof at the rear later, but first I've got to try and get this thing out. And they say just unplug the electrical plug. Well, electrical plug's down yonder, and undo the vacuum lines. Well, there is no play in anything here, but anyway, I'll get the thing out and get all the rust and rubbish and water out too. I've taken out the bottom sponge. Give you an idea how much water's in there, and I don't know if you can see it, the water down there. I'll have to get a punch and knock a hole through to drain the water out. Well, how disappointing all round. I've lifted the cover here and in the driver's front, and then I get all this rubbish. People are spliced in into the supply here. They've cut wires off here for some bloody thing, something over here, I don't know what. Some wires over here, I don't know what. Some more wires, I don't know what. But worse than all, I'll show you something. I don't know if you can see this, but that's the ground. That's rusted out, completely rusted out. I just put my hand in it. So I'm going to have that panel down there welded up by a panel beater at some stage. Well, there we go. That seems to be the extent of the hole in the floor of the car. I think the water must have been coming from down the side. I'm not sure. I know it's not from the roof at the back. And here's the view from the underside of the car. I'm going to go now and see if I can get some quotes for repairing it, putting a piece of metal in, moulding it and welding it up. Well, I took the car across the road to the panel beater, and he wanted me to pull the seats out so they can check the floor, and as you can see, it's absolutely soaked. It's water down there. I've mopped that up a little bit, so now I'm going to unbolt the driver's seat and then put it back in again, because I only want to pull out the carpet. I won't bother going into details about how to unbolt these seats, but unplugging the bloody wiring underneath is a real bastard. Rightio, I've pulled up the carpet and removed the passenger seat. I had to remove the or unbolt the driver's seat to get the carpet out. Carpet's pretty buggered. One of the things we've got here is that this on the other side of this cross piece here is rusted out, so they might have to replace that. The floor pan seems okay, and now the next thing is, how much is this going to cost?
And here is the car up on the panel beater's hoist, and you can see it's just plain rust everywhere. They could not quote the job. They would have to do it on a day-to-day basis, and turns out very, very expensive. And so I think I'd have to say I'm getting rid of this car.
And here we are. And where did that car go? Well, the car went back to the people that sold it to me, and I got my money back. The rust on that car was so far gone that would be up for at least $5,000 just cutting the rust out of the car with no guarantee. So there we go. The moral of the story is, do not buy a convertible car. Bye.